The merchant ship Star Trader drifted quietly through the golden rings of Helios Prime, its hull reflecting the warm light of the system's ancient sun. Captain James stood at the viewport, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the countless fragments of ice and rock shimmer like scattered diamonds. 20 years of running cargo through the ring system had taught him patience, but something felt different today. "Captain, we're getting those strange readings again," Tom called from his station. The young navigator's voice carried a hint of worry that made James turn away from the view. "Third time this week, and it's stronger now." James walked over to the navigation console, his boots making soft thuds against the metal deck. The display showed familiar trade routes between the 7 inhabited worlds of the ring system, but unusual energy spikes pulsed at the edges of their sensor range. He had never seen anything like it in all his years of merchant work. The Council's laws were clear. No ship could carry sensors more powerful than what was needed for basic navigation. They claimed it was for everyone's safety, just like their rules about engine power and weapons. James had always followed these laws, but lately he had begun to wonder why they existed at all. "Send a standard report to Control," James ordered, knowing they would ignore it like all the others. The Council never seemed interested in anything that didn't directly threaten their authority. He turned to his first officer, "Mike, what's our cargo status?" Mike checked his tablet, another piece of carefully regulated technology. "Food supplies for the outer colonies, medical equipment for Station 5, and raw materials for the processing plants on Helios 3. All within approved limits, Captain." As they approached the checkpoint near Helios 2, a Council patrol vessel emerged from behind one of the larger asteroids. Its sleek gray hull bore the distinctive blue stripes that everyone in the system had learned to respect, or fear. James watched as it drew closer, its sensors no doubt scanning every inch of the Star Trader. "Merchant vessel Star Trader," a cold voice crackled over the comm. "Maintain your course and prepare for routine inspection." James sighed. These inspections had become more frequent in recent months, though nobody knew why. "Acknowledged Control. We're carrying standard cargo. All manifests are up to date." As they waited for the patrol ship to dock, James noticed Tom staring intently at his console again. The navigator's face had gone pale. "Captain," he whispered, "those energy readings, they're everywhere now. And they're like nothing in the Council's approved database." James looked over Tom's shoulder, careful to keep his expression neutral in case the patrol was already watching through the viewport. The sensor display showed dozens of anomalies now, spreading through the system like ripples in a pond. Whatever was causing them had to be massive. The patrol ship's docking tube extended with a metallic clang, and 2 Council inspectors came aboard. They wore the typical gray uniforms with blue trim, their faces professionally blank as they began their work. James had dealt with hundreds of these inspections before, but today felt different. The inspectors seemed tense, their movements hurried. "Everything appears to be in order," the lead inspector finally announced, though his eyes kept darting to the windows. "You may proceed with your delivery schedule, Captain. Remember, any unauthorized deviations will result in immediate license suspension." As the inspectors left, James noticed they were having a heated conversation over their private comm channel. Something was definitely wrong. He waited until the patrol ship had undocked before turning to his crew. "Mike, double-check our route to Station 5. Tom, keep monitoring those readings, but be discreet about it. Whatever's happening, the Council knows more than they're telling us." The Star Trader continued its journey through the rings, passing the glittering ice fields that had trapped so many ships in the system's early days. James watched as distant lights flickered between the stars. Other merchant vessels going about their business, all of them following the same strict rules that had governed space travel here for centuries. But as his ship pushed onward through the carefully regulated lanes of the ring system, James couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Those mysterious energy readings were spreading, growing stronger, and the Council's unusual behavior suggested they were afraid of something. After 20 years of peaceful trading, James had learned to trust his instincts. And right now, every instinct he had was telling him to prepare for trouble. The energy readings that had worried Captain James suddenly spiked across every sensor in the ring system. A massive flash of light burst between Helios 2 and 3, forcing bridge crews on dozens of ships to shield their eyes. As the light faded, a vessel unlike anything they had ever seen hung in space before them. The ship was huge, easily 3 times the size of the largest Council cruiser. Its dark hull bore the scars of recent battle, with visible patches of repair work along its sides. Strange symbols marked its bow in white paint, and weapon ports lined its hull in patterns that spoke of deadly purpose. All ships, clear the area immediately. The Council control's voice shook as it broadcast across all channels. This is a Class 1 emergency. All civilian vessels are ordered to dock at the nearest station. Tom's hands flew across his console aboard the Star Trader. Captain, that ship. Its power readings are off the charts. Our sensors can barely process them. He paused, his eyes widening. Wait. I'm picking up communications. They're using old frequencies, ones not even in our database. The mystery ship's engines pulsed with a deep blue light as it moved slowly through space. Damaged or not, it moved with a grace that made the Council's best ships look clumsy in comparison. James watched as patrol vessels scrambled to form a defensive ring around it, their weapons charged but not firing. A new voice cut through the chaos, deep and clear. This is Captain Walker of the Earth warship Thunder's Edge. We are conducting emergency repairs and mean no harm. Please respond. The bridge of the Star Trader fell silent. Earth, a name from old stories, whispered in bars after too many drinks. A myth, the Council had always said, nothing more than legends told by dreamers and fools. James watched as more Council ships arrived, their formation tightening around the Thunder's Edge. The Council's response came quickly, filled with authority and barely hidden fear. Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. The Thunder's Edge made no hostile moves, but neither did it power down. We understand your concerns, Captain Walker replied calmly. But we will not power down our systems. We are happy to share our identity and purpose, but we must maintain our ship's defenses until we can confirm your intentions. Through the viewport, James could see other merchant ships hovering at the edges of the confrontation. Like him, they were ignoring Control's orders to dock, too fascinated by what was unfolding before them. Mike, James called to his first officer, bring up everything we have on restricted frequencies. If they're using old channels, maybe there are others. As Mike worked, the Council's response to the Earth ship grew more demanding. This is your final warning. Power down, or we will be forced to take aggressive action. The Thunder's Edge remained still, its battle-scarred hull telling stories of fights it had already survived. When Captain Walker spoke again, his voice carried the weight of experience. We've just escaped a battle with forces you couldn't imagine. We chose this system hoping to find allies, not enemies. Think carefully about your next action. James noticed something odd about the Council ship's formation. Tom, focus sensors on the patrol vessels. Something's not right about their movement. Tom adjusted the scanners. They're backing away, Captain. Slowly, trying to make it look like they're just adjusting position, but they're definitely increasing their distance. The Council was afraid, James realized. For all their rules and authority, they were backing away from a single damaged ship. But why? What did they know about Earth that had them so scared? The standoff continued as more Council ships arrived, but none moved closer to the Thunder's Edge. The massive vessel hung in space like a wounded predator, dangerous despite its injuries, commanding respect through its mere presence. Mike's voice broke through the tension. Captain, I found something on those old frequencies. Fragments of signals coming from inside Council space. They're using the same communication patterns as the Earth ship. James looked out at the Thunder's Edge, its scared hull now seeming less like damage and more like badges of honor. Whatever was happening, whatever changes this ship's arrival would bring, he knew the ring system would never be the same. The Council had always claimed they restricted technology to protect everyone. But as James watched their ships face off against this visitor from Earth, he wondered what they had really been protecting them from, or what they had been hiding all along. Hours passed in tense silence as more ships gathered around the Thunder's edge. The Council had called in everything they had, forming 3 rings of vessels around the Earth warship. But still, none moved closer. Captain James counted at least 30 patrol ships, yet something about their formation seemed wrong. "They're leaving gaps," Tom said, pointing at his display aboard the Star Trader. "The Council ships, they're intentionally leaving escape routes open. They're not trying to trap the Earth ship at all." James studied the pattern and realized Tom was right. The Council, always so strict about their rules, always so confident in their authority, were positioning their ships like frightened animals circling a predator. They wanted to look strong while giving themselves room to run. A new signal cut through the silence. This time it came from a massive Council vessel that had just arrived. "This is High Commander Mills of the Council Security Force. All merchant vessels are violating direct orders. Return to dock immediately or lose your trading licenses permanently." James watched as several merchant ships reluctantly turned away. But others stayed, their captains as unwilling as him to miss this historic moment. Something about the Earth ship's presence had cracked the Council's perfect mask of control, and he needed to understand why. "Captain," Mike called from his station, "I'm picking up more of those hidden frequencies. They're coming from the outer colonies now too. It's like the Earth ship's arrival has woken something up." Before James could respond, the Thunder's Edge began broadcasting on all channels, including the old frequencies Mike had discovered. Captain Walker's voice was calm but carried an edge of steel. "We've detected your weapons powering up behind that 3rd ring of ships. If you're planning to attack, you should know our defensive systems are automated. Even if you somehow manage to destroy us, the response will be immediate and decisive." The Council ships in the 3rd ring quickly powered down their weapons. James watched in amazement. He had never seen the Council back down before. "Not once in 20 years. Your presence here violates agreements that have maintained peace for centuries," High Commander Mills responded, but his voice lacked conviction. "The technology level of your vessel alone is a threat to system stability." A harsh laugh came over the common channel. One of the other merchant captains had patched into the conversation. "Peace? You mean control. 20 years I've been flying these routes, watching you restrict and regulate everything we do. Now we know why." More merchant captains joined the channel, their voices growing bolder. James recognized them. Old traders like himself who had spent decades following the Council's endless rules. Now they were all watching their carefully controlled world crack apart. "Captain Walker," James found himself speaking before he fully decided to. "This is Captain James of the Star Trader. Those frequencies you're using, we're picking them up all over the system now. What are they?" The Thunder's Edge's response was immediate. "They're emergency frequencies, Captain James. Standard channels used by Earth and other human colonies. The fact that you're detecting them now means there are human emergency beacons in your system. Beacons that have been dormant for a very long time." The implications hit James like a physical blow. The Council hadn't just been controlling technology. They had been hiding history itself. How many other secrets were buried in the ring system's past? High Commander Mills's voice cracked with anger. "This conversation is over. Earth ship, you will power down and surrender, or what?" Captain Walker cut in. "You'll destroy us. Like you destroyed the truth about who these people really are. We can detect the suppression field you're using across this system. We know exactly what you've been doing to keep these colonies dependent and weak." The Council ship's formation began to waver. Several merchant vessels broke from their assigned waiting positions and moved closer to the Thunder's Edge. James found his hands moving across his own helm controls, bringing the Star Trader forward as well. This is your real final warning. Walker continued. Drop your suppression field and stand down your weapons. It's time these people learned the truth about their heritage and about what you've stolen from them. The ring system hung in breathless silence, waiting to see if centuries of control would end in peace or violence. And James knew, watching the Council ship's formations continue to deteriorate, that nothing would ever be the same again. The Council's suppression field fell like a curtain being torn away. Across the ring system, hidden frequencies burst into life, ancient systems awakened, and forgotten computers hummed with power. On the Star Trader's bridge, Tom's console lit up with data that had been invisible moments before. "Captain, I'm getting readings from everywhere," Tom said, his voice filled with wonder. "There are bases, stations, and beacons that weren't there before. They were hidden, somehow kept silent by the Council's field." James watched as other merchant ships began reporting similar discoveries. Each revelation painted a clearer picture of the Council's great lie. The ring system hadn't been settled by primitive colonies that needed protection. It had been home to advanced civilizations that the Council had systematically suppressed. The Thunder's Edge moved forward slowly, and none of the Council ships dared to block its path. Captain Walker's voice carried across all channels again. "To all ships in the system, what you're seeing now is your true heritage. The Council didn't protect you. They conquered you, stripped away your technology, and made you dependent on their rules." High Commander Mills's response was desperate. "Don't listen to these lies. We maintained peace. We prevented the wars and destruction that unrestricted technology brings." "Show them," Walker commanded, and the Thunder's Edge began broadcasting data to every ship in range. "These are historical records from Earth's databases, records of the ring system from 300 years ago, before the Council arrived." James stared at his screen as images filled it. The ring system he knew was a shadow of what had once existed here. Great space stations had orbited the planets, ships had moved freely between the stars, and the colonies had been jewels of civilization rather than dependent outposts. "My grandfather used to tell stories," one of the merchant captains said over the common channel. "Tales about ships that could jump between stars, about colonies that built their own vessels. We all thought they were just dreams, but they were memories, weren't they? Passed down despite everything the Council did to make us forget." More merchant ships moved to surround the Thunder's Edge, not in threat but in protection. James guided the Star Trader to join them. His whole life had been spent following Council rules, believing their lies about safety and protection. The anger he felt now was like a physical thing. Tom's voice shook as he reported more findings. "Captain, I'm detecting active technology in the old mines on Helios 3. The ones the Council said were too dangerous to approach. They're not mines at all. They're shipyards. Huge ones. They've been there all along." "You don't understand what you're doing," High Commander Mills pleaded. "There are threats out there you can't imagine. We kept you safe from them." "Safe?" Walker's reply dripped with scorn. "You kept them weak. Those threats you're so afraid of. We fought them. Earth and her colonies have bled and died fighting real dangers while you hid in your little empire, keeping these people as pets." James opened a channel to the Thunder's Edge. "Captain Walker, the Council's ships are moving. They're trying to surround the old shipyards." "Not for long," Walker replied. A new light began pulsing from the Earth ship's hull, and suddenly every Council vessel's engines died, leaving them drifting helplessly in space. "A gift from Earth," Walker explained. "Technology that lets us shut down hostile ships without harming their crews. Something else the Council didn't want you to have." The merchant ships watched in amazement as the mighty Council fleet floated powerless in the void. Centuries of fear and control were ending not with a battle, but with a simple demonstration of power that showed just how much had been kept from them. "All merchant captains, this is James," he called over the common channel. "Those shipyards need to be secured before the Council can destroy them. We need volunteers." Ships began moving immediately, their crews eager to reclaim their stolen history. As the Star Trader joined them, James looked back at the Thunder's edge. One damaged Earth ship had done what centuries of submission could not. It had shown them the truth about who they really were. The Star Trader raced toward the hidden shipyards of Helios 3, leading a group of merchant vessels through the golden rings. Behind them, the Council's powerless ships drifted like dead leaves in space. But James knew better than to think the fight was over. The Council had ruled this system for centuries, and they would have backup plans. Multiple ships launching from the far side of Helios 3, Tom reported, his eyes fixed on the sensor display. These aren't patrol ships, Captain. They're warships. Real ones. James watched as massive vessels rose from hidden bases on the planet's surface. They were nothing like the simple patrol craft the Council usually showed. These ships bristled with weapons, their black hulls unmarked by any identifying symbols. The Council's true fleet. Captain Walker's voice came through clearly. We wondered where they were hiding their real power. All ships, fall back to defensive positions. But James saw an opportunity in the chaos. Walker, the Council's focusing everything on you. They still think you're the only real threat. If we can get to those shipyards while their fleet is distracted. Agreed, Walker replied. We'll keep them busy. But be careful. Those shipyards will be booby-trapped. The Council wouldn't leave such valuable technology unprotected. The merchant ships split into two groups. Most formed up around the Thunder's edge, while James led a smaller group toward the shipyards. The Council's hidden fleet ignored them completely, focusing all their attention on the Earth warship. They're powering up weapons, Mike reported as they approached the shipyards. But not on the warships. There are defense platforms hidden in the rings. They're targeting the civilian docks and colonies. James felt cold anger grip him. They'd rather destroy everything than let us reclaim it. Send word to all colonies. Begin emergency evacuations. And get me a channel to all merchant ships. The Council's true face was finally showing. Their hidden fleet engaged the Thunder's edge with weapons that shouldn't have existed under their own laws. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes lit up space as the Earth ship demonstrated why it had survived whatever battles had damaged it before arriving here. All merchants, this is James. The Council's trying to destroy our homes rather than let us be free. We need to split up. Half of us protect the colonies, half continue to the shipyards. Whatever we find, there might be our only chance to save our people. Ships peeled away from his group, racing to defend the civilian stations. James kept the Star Trader on course for the shipyards, watching as the massive structure grew larger in their viewport. What had looked like simple mining equipment now revealed its true nature. Construction bays, repair docks, and manufacturing facilities that could have made the ring system independent. Captain, Tom called out, I'm reading power signatures in the shipyards. Something's still active in there, after all these years. The first defense platforms opened fire, their beams slicing through space around the approaching merchant ships. But centuries of moving through the treacherous rings had made these captains excellent pilots. They dodged and weaved, refusing to be turned away from their goal. Multiple impacts on the Thunder's edge, Mike reported. But Walker's keeping the entire Council fleet occupied. They haven't even noticed us yet. James guided the Star Trader through a gap in the shipyard's outer ring, other merchant ships following his lead. As they got closer, they could see that parts of the facility were already running, ancient systems reactivating now that the suppression field was down. Life support active in sections 3 through 7, Tom announced. And Captain, I'm reading ships in there. Actual ships already built, just waiting. A new transmission cut through their communications, this one coming from the shipyards themselves. An old automated message, playing on repeat. Emergency protocol active. Harbor Defense Fleet standing by for activation codes. Please input authorization. James looked at his crew, saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt. The Council had hidden more than history. They had hidden an entire fleet. And now, as their true warships battled the Thunder's edge above, these merchant crews had found exactly what they needed to fight back. Send to all ships, James ordered. We're going aboard that station. Whatever the Council used to control us, to keep us weak, it ends today. The old shipyard's corridors hummed with awakening power as James led his crew through the massive structure. Emergency lights cast everything in a soft blue glow, revealing technology that should have been dead for centuries. Behind them, more merchant crews were spreading through the facility, each group searching for a way to activate the dormant ships they'd found. The main control center should be 3 levels up, Tom said, checking the facility's maps on a display that had sparked to life at their approach. But we're getting strange readings. Someone's already up there. The Council fleet's battle with the Thunder's Edge lit up space outside the station's windows. The Earth ship was holding its own against overwhelming numbers, its advanced technology matching the Council's hidden fleet. But it couldn't last forever. More defense platforms are powering up. Mike's voice came through their comms. They're targeting civilian stations now. The evacuation teams can't keep up. James quickened his pace, his crew following close behind. The Council was showing its true nature now, willing to destroy everything rather than lose control. As they climbed through the station, they found more signs of recent activity. Doors that had been forced open, equipment that had been moved. Stop. A voice echoed through the corridor ahead. This area is restricted by Council order. A group of Council security forces blocked their path, weapons raised. Their uniforms were different from the usual patrol crews, darker, with no identifying marks. These were the Council's real soldiers, the ones they'd kept hidden along with their true fleet. Stand down, James called out. You've seen what's happening out there. The Council's attacking civilian targets. Is that what you signed up to protect? You don't understand, the lead soldier replied, but his weapon wavered. There are things out there, threats you can't imagine. The Council keeps us safe. Safe. James took a step forward. Like the Earth ship out there, fighting to protect our people while your leaders try to destroy them. What kind of safety requires keeping us weak and ignorant? More merchant crew members arrived behind James, armed with tools and whatever they'd found in the station. The Council soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. Think about it, James continued. If the Council really protected us, why did they hide their own fleet? Why did they bury this shipyard and wipe our history? What else have they been lying about? A massive explosion rocked the station. Through the windows, they could see one of the civilian docks breaking apart under Council fire. The lead soldier lowered his weapon. We joined to protect people, he said quietly. Not this. Not murdering civilians. The other soldiers followed his lead, stepping aside to let James and his crew pass. Behind them, Tom's voice came urgently through the comms. Captain, the Thunder's Edge is taking heavy damage. They can't hold out much longer. The control center's doors had been sealed, but decades of working with ships had taught these merchant crews plenty about breaking into places they weren't supposed to go. Within minutes, they were inside. Banks of computers filled the room, their screens showing the battle outside and the status of every system in the shipyard. And there, in the center, stood High Commander Mills himself, frantically working at a console. Step away, James ordered. It's over. Mills turned, his face twisted with rage and fear. You fools. You have no idea what's coming. We kept you weak because strength attracts attention. Attention from things that would destroy us all. Like whatever the Thunder's Edge was running from. James moved closer. The ship that came here looking for allies, while you hide in the dark and murder your own people. The commander's hand moved to a hidden weapon, but he was surrounded by merchant crew members who'd spent their lives doing real work. The fight was brief and one-sided. All defense platforms are targeting the shipyard, Mike reported through the comms. They're going to destroy it rather than let us have it. James rushed to the main console, his hands flying over controls that felt strangely familiar. Not if we launch first. Send to all crews. Get to the dormant ships. Tom, start transmitting activation codes to the harbor defense fleet. If the Council wants a fight, Let's show them what their weak merchants can really do. The shipyard trembled as ancient engines began to power up, and doors that had been sealed for centuries slowly opened to space. The real battle for the ring system was about to begin. The harbor defense fleet awakened one ship at a time, ancient engines glowing with power that had been sleeping for centuries. James watched from the shipyard's control center as merchant crews raced to their newly claimed vessels. These weren't the simple trading ships they were used to. These were real warships, built by their ancestors and hidden away by the Council. First wave of ships online. Tom reported from his position at the main console. Basic systems only, but their weapons are functional. Second wave charging now. Through the massive windows, they could see the Council's fleet still hammering away at the Thunder's edge. The Earth-ship's shields were failing, its hull scarred by multiple hits, but it refused to retreat. Captain Walker was buying them time with his crew's blood. This is James to all activated ships. He broadcast on the old frequencies they'd discovered. Launch as soon as you have power. The Thunder's edge needs support now. The shipyard's massive doors opened wider, and the first vessels of the harbor defense fleet emerged. They were smaller than the Council's warships, but more numerous. Decades of navigating the treacherous rings had made these merchant crews excellent pilots, and they proved it now as they entered the battle. Council ships are breaking formation, Mike called out. They didn't expect resistance from this direction. The harbor defense fleet's first shots caught the Council vessels completely by surprise. Energy beams sliced through space, targeting engines and weapons with precision that spoke of advanced targeting systems. The merchant crews might not know how to use everything on their new ships yet, but they knew exactly where to hit to hurt a vessel. Multiple Council ships disabled, Tom reported with satisfaction. Their fleets splitting up, half trying to maintain the attack on Thunder's edge, half turning to face us. James watched as more ships launched from the shipyard, joining the growing battle. The Council's trap had become a desperate fight for survival, as their carefully hidden fleet faced enemies on two sides. This is Walker, the Earth captain's voice came through clearly despite the battle. Well done, merchants. Now watch how Earth fights. The Thunder's edge's hull suddenly blazed with energy, and systems that had appeared damaged came fully online. It had been playing wounded, drawing the Council fleet in close. Now it showed its true power, its weapons cutting through multiple Council ships in a single barrage. Council vessels are retreating, Mike announced. They're running for the outer system. But James had watched the Council's cruelty for too long to let them escape now. All ships, form up on the Thunder's edge. We can't let them regroup. They'll just come back with something worse. The combined fleet moved as one, merchant crews flying ancient warships alongside the advanced Earth vessel. They caught the Council ships before they could reach their hidden bases. The battle was short and decisive. This is High Command. A new voice broke through on all channels. All Council forces, stand down. I repeat, stand down. The ring system is no longer under Council control. A cheer went up through the fleet as the remaining Council ships cut their engines. After centuries of control, of lies and suppression, the system was free. But James knew their work was just beginning. Captain Walker, he called to the Earth ship. You said something was coming, something that made the Council afraid. What is it? A story for another day, Walker replied. But this time you'll face it as equals, with all your technology and strength. The Council tried to hide from what's out there. Earth believes in standing and fighting. James looked out at the ships around him. Earth technology beside reclaimed ancestors' vessels, merchant crews working with the weapons they'd been denied for so long. The ring system was changing, growing stronger by the hour as more hidden technology was discovered and reactivated. Send to all ships and stations, he ordered. The Council's gone. We had a lot to learn and not much time to learn it. But we're not alone anymore. The fleet began to move back toward the inner system, where civilians were emerging from their shelters to find their world transformed. The stars seemed brighter somehow, now that they were free to reach for them again. And send a private message to the Thunder's Edge, James added with a smile. Tell them we're glad they decided to visit our little system. Things were getting pretty boring around here anyway. The ancient shipyard continued to wake up behind them, more ships launching to join the fleet. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in centuries, it was their future to choose. Whatever was coming, the ring system would face it standing tall, just as their ancestors had, just as Earth did now.